Remembrance Sunday today. So I just wanted to go through why do we mark Remembrance Sunday and what's the point in it. So Remembrance Sunday actually started in 1915 when King George I'm going with fifth, was it the fifth? Yeah. King George V decided to mark the day of armistice, basically, and to remember those that had fallen during the First World War. And it just became a thing that we do in the United Kingdom, where we mark every year those that fell, particularly in the first two world wars, but also in all of the conflicts that have happened since that time. So generally we have Remembrance Sunday, which is always the second Sunday of the month, and it's the actual Remembrance Day is on the 11th of November, because on the 11th of November, so the 11th of the 11th at 11 AM was when the war ended. So that's why it's marked at that particular time. And we have a 2-minute silence. So I don't know if anybody did the 2-minute silence this morning, if you were in churches or if you were watching it on the TV. But obviously, so we normally have it today, and we also have it on Tuesday. If anybody's standing around at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday somewhere, then we'll probably have 2-minute silence then as well. So why poppies? This is something that my son asked me. Well, why poppies? And the reason for poppies is because in the destruction and the rubble of the First World War, in that destruction, nothing kind of grew, and the first things that grew were poppies. So that's the first thing that kind of came out of all the rubble, were these bright red poppies, and so that's why we use them to symbolise remembrance. And there are generally 4 different types of poppies, for those of you that don't know. There's the red poppies that we use to signify, to remember the fallen, the lost. There's the black poppies to remember people of colour that lost themselves in the war. Then we have purple poppy, which is for the animals that died during the war. And there were a lot of animals that died during the wars. And then the white poppy is the peace poppy. So you'll often see people wearing a white poppy because they want to remember the people that have fallen, but they also want to remind everybody that actually they're not for war, they want peace. So that's why there are kind of 4 different poppies. So why is it still important? It's 80 years this year since the Second World War ended. And for anybody who did watch the kind of the cenotaph display this morning, there were a few 100-year-old people who were there, who were being kind of mainly wheeled past, but some of them walked past the cenotaph to remember their comrades that had fallen. So that not only are there still people alive who were fighting in World War II, but also because of all of the wars that have happened since then, of which there have been many, unfortunately. We don't seem to learn, as human beings, what the cost of war is. I think it's important because even if you're against war in all forms, they still happen, and they're still happening today in more countries than we care to think about, and more countries than are shown on the mainstream news. And it's also a chance to think about those who have not only sacrificed themselves, but for those people that have had severe life-changing injuries. There was somebody on the cenotaph this morning as well who lost 2 legs and 1 arm during the war in Afghanistan or Iraq, I can't remember which one it was, serving his country to try and help others and to try and make a space for all of us. So I think it's still important that we remember not just those that died, but also those who have had their lives completely changed by wars. So let's just go into a moment of prayer. Gracious God, this evening we particularly think about those who sacrificed themselves to give us freedom. For those people that have fought for their country, whichever country that may be. those people who are still fighting today. We pray for those families of loved ones who have been casualties of the war. We pray for those who have significant injuries that are life-changing. We pray for all of our nation and for all of the nations across the world who are still undergoing conflict, war and oppression. So rather than having a biblical reading today, we're having a reading which some of you will, there is one verse in it which I think you'll all remember or be at least familiar with, yeah. Ali is going to read it for us, please.
With proud thanksgiving, a mother for her children, England mourns for her dead across the sea. Flesh of her flesh they were, spirit of her spirit, fallen in the cause of the free. Solemn the drums thrill, death august and royal, sing sorrow up into immortal spheres. There is music in the midst of desolation, and a glory that shines upon our tears. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, strength of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. They mingle not with their laughing comrades again. They sit no more at familiar tables of home. They have no lot in our labour of the daytime. They sleep beyond England's home. But where our desires are and our hopes profound, felt as a wellspring that is hidden from sight, to the innermost heart of their own land they are known, as the stars are known to the night. As the stars that shall be bright when we are dust, moving in marches upon the heavenly plain, as the stars that are starry in the time of our darkness, to the end they remain.
Thank you, Ali. So that poem is For the Fallen by Lawrence Bignon, written in September of 1914. And the bit that I think most of you will remember or be familiar with is that fifth verse. So they shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We're just going to take just 1 minute of silence before we continue on. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Amen. There's something nice, I think, that even when you're having a moment of silence, you can hear the innocence of children. And I know that you are generally trying to make them be quiet, but actually it's quite nice that they don't know quite yet why people are being silent, and if only they could grow up never having to have that moment of silence, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing for this world? So today we're going to talk about flags. So I could have put so many flags up there, and actually to start with I only had the one, and then I changed my mind and decided to put a few up there. So obviously there is the Pride flag up there, which is the Progressive Pride flag, the Welsh flag, in case you didn't realise, the Union Jack, and then the bottom one. Does anybody know what that one is? Anyone? Is it some church thing to do with peace? Did you guess that because of the cross? So this is actually the Christian flag. Okay. It's a flag, it's a Christian flag. I wrote down what year it was. Made in 1897. So it's the cross is in the colour of blood for Jesus. The blue background is for the waters of baptism, and the white, the big section in white, is for Jesus' purity. And it's been used by many churches, denominations over the years, particularly Anglicans, apparently, Methodist, Baptist. That's why I was looking at certain people in the congregation to kind of go, members to kind of go, do you not know what it is? So I personally, I've never seen this flag. I've never seen it displayed anywhere. I've never seen it up. I've never seen anybody talk about it. But this is apparently the Christian flag. Now, flags were first used in the battlefield. And believe it or not, when even in the First World War, actually, some of the first people to go over the top of things were people either carrying a flag or playing the bagpipes. You know, they were the first people to go over. They didn't have a gun. They had nothing to defend themselves with. They were purely playing music so that the rest of the battlemen could follow them, which seems quite absurd, really, to go into a load of people firing things at you with just a set of bagpipes or a drum. But this is what flags were used for. And flags go back to Jesus' time and before. So particularly around the Roman Empire, they used to have every kind of 100 centurions used to have a standard. So a standard is a square bit of cloth which has a symbol or whatever on it. So even back then, people were using flags to say, we belong to this particular group. And they've always been used for that kind of identity, to unite people and to communicate to other people who you belong to. There's quite often you will see flags flying on civic buildings, particularly in capital cities. You'll see them flying. Obviously, there are the four patron saints, so you'll see the St. George's cross, you'll see the St. Andrew's cross, and then I start running out of patron saints. St. David's obviously is the Welsh flag anyway, and there is another one for it. And then you've got patron saint of Ireland. Somebody help me. Patrick, thank you. Good old Paddy. How can I forget him? And the Union Jack is because that's what happened. The United Kingdom came together, which at the time was England, Scotland and Ireland came together and they formed that Union Jack. And Wales, why is the Wales flag not in it? Because Wales was part of England at that time, so they were already represented, I know. They were already represented by the St George's Cross. Obviously now, there's a bit, why not Wales on the flag? But that's the reason why the flag is as it is. You see flags flying at half-mast if somebody important has died, or it could just be somebody in that building, particularly well known to them, has died. So sometimes you might see a flag flying at half-mast and not know exactly who it's for. And on Remembrance Day, we see flags. They play a very important part in the ceremony. If you see the cenotaph in London, there are 3 flags on it, one representing each of the armed forces, the Navy, the RAF and the Army. And people who are marching sometimes hold flags, or they have insignia on their caps or on their jackets to signify what regiment they were from and what battalion they were from. So there's a sense of identity that comes with holding a flag and standing behind it. Recently, the flying of flags has become not so much of an identity as a threat. People are flying flags not just on buildings, but certainly on motorway bridges, outside houses, on other buildings. And it's not a point of being united. It's a way of communicating that people are not welcome. And it's very difficult to know whether a flag that is flying these days is because somebody is proud of that flag flying in the nation that they stand behind, or because they want to alienate other people from coming in. So the last kind of point on the slide says signalling, decoration and display. We did have flags here, they're not there anymore. Are they over the inside? No. We don't have a flag in this church. There is a big flag in the dojo where I teach karate, a big Welsh flag. It's facing the wrong way, but we just cope with that every week. I wonder if you've walked past anywhere this week or today that you've seen a flag flying and what you've thought of it. Flags can be used for good. And so the ones that are flying that aren't, do they detract from people flying flags now? Has flying a flag become given us a completely different meaning? When we think about the horror of wars, we must also remember what came out of them. So international treaties and conventions came out to prevent people being oppressed, to prevent more people dying, to stop the oppression. When we look at these flags, we want to be remembering the values that they did stand for the peace that they brought, for the diversity that they show, for the welcoming, for the sheltering of the oppressed. It's really hard to do this when Orla and Taz are strangling each other with scarves down here. As I was saying, welcoming the stranger, and it's like, no, we're going to strangle the stranger. If you go back to the time of Israel, there were 12 tribes, and those tribes all had flags or standards that went with them to signify which tribe they belonged to. They were used for identification organisation when they were camping or marching, and to show people as they got to them who they were. I'd love to go back to this time when flags meant what they were designed to mean. And as part of our discussions today, we're going to talk about that. Ignore the last one, I forgot to delete it. First question that we have. Do you have an affinity to a particular flag? And if so, why? When you see flags flying, what are your thoughts? And if Jesus had his own flag, what would it represent? I mean, the last question literally says, do you think, actually? So, I mean, you can discuss whether you think or not, if you really want to. We're going to say goodbye to the online people. It has been a pleasure being with you. It might not have been a pleasure for you, but it was for us. Please, if you have any answers to the questions, please write them in the group and one of us will respond.